Today I'll be giving an oral commentary on Winter Landscape and Rooks by Sylvia Plath. This poem, which was written in 1956, coincided with the year that Sylvia Plath married Ted Hughes. This would provide context for the messages which are conveyed within this poem through its persona. And within the poem, this persona begins with the description of a winter landscape before transitioning into a much wider view of said landscape, all before turning their attention towards an unknown person, all to convey the conflicting emotions which the persona feels for said person. Now, the poem begins with the line, "Water in the mill race through a sluice of stone." Immediately, we see a contrast within the words that the persona uses, such as mill race and through a sluice of stone. Now, for mill race, it contains a smooth and liquid-like sound in mill race, which contrasts with the sluice of stone, the sound, which creates a harsh grinding effect, which will contrast with the earlier smooth effect, which shows that the persona is conflicted within. And these emotions then plunges headlong into a black pond. Now the word plunges is a charged word which creates the effect that it wasn't done with elegance or with style, but sort of violently, as the emotions are conflicting to the point which they just clash, and Wall just plunges headlong into the black pond. Now, black usually symbolizes death in most cases, or the murkiness, the darkness, the uncertainty of certain things, which would soon be contrasted by an absurd and out of season swan, a singular swan, in fact, which floats chaste as snow and taunting the clouded mind which hungers to haul the white reflection down. Now, a lot could be said about this image that is created through this, as you see a black pond with only a single swan on top of it, which may represent the mental state of the persona. The black pond, which represents her all of her frustrations, it tries to haul down this single swan, haul also being a charge word, which means to be pulled with force or effort, which goes to show how desperately that the persona wants to drag this swan, the lake wants to drag this swan down, which could be a metaphor for her emotions, like a certain aspect of it that she still feels positively about towards a specific unnamed person, while the black represents all the bad times that they've had to deal with each other, and how much that the persona now despises them, and the swan represents the single one of the few good times that they still have together, which she wants to preserve yet still wants to destroy, so as to create this restore this balance of sorts so there are no conflicting emotions whatsoever. Now, another way which this could be taken is that the single swan, which is described as chaste, represents the persona themselves before they had encountered this person, which is now represented by the lake, as the persona was pure and chaste as before they met this person, and now they have dragged them down to a place where they do not like, which all ties back into this conflicting which all ties back into the conflicting message which this poem tries to convey. Now, this all shifts as the second stanza comes along with the austere sun descends above the fen. Now, austere means strict in most cases, and as we soon see, the sun is also used in a metaphor that compares it to an orange cyclops eye, which is scorning to look longer on this landscape of chagrin. Now, the Cyclops eye is an allusion to the Cyclops of Greek mythology, which serves well to contrast with the sun that it is compared to in this stanza. Now, the sun, when often thinking about it, the sun is in the sky. It's free to do as it wills, but it contrasts itself with the Cyclops, which, in Greek mythology, was in fact once trapped within Tartarus by one of the was trapped within the Cyclops are trapped within Tartarus by Cronus. So the juxtaposition of the free sun in the sky to the Cyclops, which are locked away deep underground in the dark pits of Tartarus, shows this conflicting idea once again, as well as the eye being a symbol of wisdom or enlightenment or the truth in some cases, which is going to look longer on this landscape of chagrin. Now, the sound, the low sound, also drags the scene out, like as if the sun wants to keep looking at it, but it doesn't want to. Now, this plays into how the persona wants to get past her feelings already for this person, as chagrin, which means embarrassment, which comes from one's own failure. It can be implied that the persona wants to no longer look at all these emotions that she once held for said person and just move on from there. Now, the next part of this poem states, feathered dark in thought, I stalk like a rook, brooding as the winter night comes on. We see a lot of bird imagery here, in a sense, with words such as feathered and a reference and a simile comparing the persona to a rook, which is part of the crow family, as well as the pun on brooding, which a group of birds can be called as a brood, which in turn makes the persona appear less human and more like an animal, all in order to put some distance between them. The last stanza, which begins with last summer's reeds are all engraved in ice, as your image in my eye, as is your image in my eye. Now this line shows a progression of time of sorts, as it was summer, but now it is now winter, and all the reeds are now encased in ice as it's frozen, and the simile of it comparing it to your image in my eye, which shows that the persona, the person which she's speaking to now is dead to her, such as like the reed. Dry frost glazes the window of my hurt. What solace can be struck from rock to make heart's waste grow green again? Who'd walk in this bleak place? Within these last lines, the persona expresses her emotions towards the speaker in which she was addressing, or the last two lines represent the emotion that she's feeling as she is addressing the unnamed person, which shows how hurt she is by the what has happened between them, as now the person in which she was speaking to has done something to the persona which has made her turn cold in a way, which she sort of metaphorically relates to by a winter landscape, as the summer was when they worked together and everything was all good, and then something happened between them in which now the person in which she is speaking to, is sort of dead to her, and the cold has taken over her.